Introduction. The soft hum of the wedding orchestra filled the grand ballroom as I stood in the back, carefully adjusting my coat. I took in the sight of my son, Daniel, standing proudly beside Rebecca, his fiancée. The extravagant wedding, the ocean view venue, the grand flowers, I had paid for it all, pouring every last bit of my savings into making this day perfect for him. Then, as if on cue, Rebecca turned to face me. Her smile was sharp, almost cold, and in front of all the guests, she made it clear I wasn't welcome. The words sliced through the air with chilling precision, but I simply smiled and said, "I'm leaving, but before I go, there's someone I'd like you to meet." What happened next was unexpected. Her wineglass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. "I'm Margaret Thompson, 67. I'm a widow, living off my pension and savings. My life has been dedicated to my son, Daniel, and I've always put family first. But now, as I face an unexpected truth, my strength is about to be tested in ways I never saw it coming. Follow for more." The smell of beef stew drifted through my little Savannah home that evening when the front door opened. Daniel walked in, his face glowing, his hand clasped tightly around a young woman's. "Mom," he said, brimming with pride, "I want you to meet Rebecca." The girl stepped forward, every movement graceful, her smile dazzling enough to light the whole room. She extended her hand to me. "I'm so happy to finally meet you, Mrs. Carter. Daniel talks about you all the time." I took her hand gently. "I hope it was all good things." Daniel laughed, eyes fixed on her as if no one else existed. "I told her about your stew. She insisted on trying it tonight." Rebecca chuckled softly. "If it tastes half as good as it smells, I might never leave this kitchen." We sat down around the old wooden table. Rebecca spoke with ease, her words polished, almost rehearsed. She told us she worked in finance, managing investment portfolios. I didn't understand much of it, but Daniel listened like every word was music. I tried to keep my voice casual. "Your parents must be very proud of you, Rebecca." For the briefest second, her face froze. Her eyes darkened, sharp, almost cold. Then, just as quickly, the smile returned. "My family isn't really close. Honestly, I've never needed them." I paused, spoon hovering over my bowl. "Never needed them?" Daniel jumped in quickly, his tone protective. "What she means, Mom, is that she's independent." That's one of the things I love about her. Rebecca placed her hand over his, her voice velvet smooth. "Daniel understands me. I've been on my own since 18. Everything I have, I earned myself." I nodded, but something uneasy stirred in me. A girl speaking of her family with such indifference, it didn't sit right. When Daniel carried the plates to the sink, Rebecca leaned closer, her voice sweet as honey. "Mrs. Carter, your stew? It's incredible. I wish my mother knew how to cook like this." I forced a smile. "She doesn't?" Rebecca's eyes flickered, her answer too quick. "Oh, she's always busy. Anyway, I've always taken care of myself." Daniel returned just in time to wrap an arm around her shoulders. His voice trembled with emotion. "Mom, Rebecca's the strongest woman I've ever known. I think she's the one." I looked at him, my heart aching with both pride and fear. I didn't want to crush the joy in his eyes. So I only smiled, swallowing the unease clawing at me. Rebecca turned back to me, her perfect smile fixed in place. But in that instant, when Daniel wasn't watching, I caught it, the mask slipping. Her eyes sharpened, calculating, not the eyes of a girl in love, but of someone measuring her prize. My grip tightened on the chair, my heart beat faster. But when Daniel hugged me and whispered, "Mom, I finally found her. The one I've been waiting for," I said nothing. I chose silence, and that silence would become the doorway to everything that followed. I never thought I'd part with the little flower shop my husband and I built 30 years ago. Its chipped counters, the smell of roses in the morning. That place was my history. But when Daniel and Rebecca started talking about their dream wedding by the ocean, I convinced myself, what's a building compared to my son's happiness? So I sold it. $112,000, gone in one signature. And when I looked at Daniel's face that night, lit up with excitement, I told myself again, it's worth it. He deserves this joy. After all he's lost, he deserves everything. Rebecca leaned across the table, her voice soft, almost tearful. "Mrs. Carter, I don't even know how to thank you. Daniel and I, We could never afford something like this without you. I wanted to believe the shine in her eyes was gratitude. I wanted to. Daniel reached for my hand. Mom, the Belmont Resort, it's perfect. Ocean view, ballroom, even the gardens. Remember how Dad always said my wedding would be something special? I nodded, smiling through the lump in my throat. Yes, sweetheart. He'd be proud, but Rebecca's tone shifted ever so slightly. The resort requires a 70% deposit up front, and the florist said the Ecuadorian roses I wanted, 2,000 stems, will be about 14,000. Oh, and the Vera Wang gown? They won't start alterations until half is paid. 6,000, I think. Her words tumbled out like a list, a shopping list. Daniel blinked. That much? Rebecca gave his hand a squeeze, her voice soothing, coaxing. It's once in a lifetime, love. You'll only get married once. Don't you think it should be perfect? I sat there, silent, calculating in my head. 70% deposit. 14,000 for roses. 6,000 for the dress. I can cover it. I still have the bonds. Maybe even the emergency fund. I heard myself speak before I even realized. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Rebecca's face softened instantly. She touched my arm, eyes glistening. You're an angel, Mrs. Carter. Truly, the mother I never had. Her words should have warmed me. Instead, they pressed down like a weight I couldn't name. That night, lying awake in bed, I whispered into the dark, What are you doing, Eleanor? This is your retirement, your safety, everything you and Henry built. Are you really going to trade it all for one night? And then I remembered Daniel's smile, brighter than I'd seen in years, and I answered myself, yes. If it means protecting his happiness, yes. So I wrote the checks, one after another, and with every stroke of the pen, I told myself I wasn't losing. I was giving. Giving to my son, because that's what mothers do. The wedding planning consumed our days. I drove Rebecca and Daniel to fittings, meetings, tastings. We sat across from florists and caterers, pages of contracts spread out like an endless maze. But something nagged me. Every time a vendor asked about Rebecca's family, who would host the rehearsal dinner, who was contributing to the budget, she brushed it aside with a practiced smile. Oh, it'll just be Daniel's side. My parents, they're complicated. Complicated. Always that word. Never details, never names. One afternoon at the resort office, the event coordinator looked up from her clipboard. Mrs. Hayes, will your father be joining us for the final walkthrough? Rebecca's hand tightened around her pen. No, that won't be necessary. My family won't be involved. She smoothed her dress and turned to Daniel, her voice lilting. It'll be easier with just us anyway, right, honey? Daniel smiled, oblivious. Sure. Less cooks in the kitchen? I forced a polite laugh, but my stomach churned. A wedding with 300 guests, and not a single person from her side? Later that night, as we sat in Daniel's apartment surrounded by stacks of wedding invoices, Rebecca slid a folder across the table. Daniel, we should really add my name to your account. That way I can pay vendors directly. It'll be so much more convenient. I froze. Daniel didn't hesitate. Of course. Makes sense. He reached for his laptop. Wait. My voice cracked sharper than I intended. You want access to his account? Rebecca tilted her head, feigning surprise. It's not access, Mrs. Carter. It's just efficiency. We're getting married. Why shouldn't we handle finances together? Daniel chuckled nervously. Mom, it's fine. Couples share everything. Isn't that what you and Dad always did? I looked at him, my heart twisting. Yes, Henry and I shared everything. But after decades of trust, not after 6 months and a shiny ring. Rebecca reached across the table, her fingers brushing Daniel's. Darling, I just want to take stress off your shoulders. You work so hard. Let me manage the little things. Her voice was velvet, her smile sweet. To Daniel, she looked like a savior. To me, she looked like a thief waiting for the vault to open. I said nothing more. I just watched as my son typed her name onto his account, his face glowing with love, and in that moment I knew the perfect girl had cracks, tiny but real, and once you see the first crack, you can't stop looking for the rest. We sat in Daniel's apartment, the dining table buried under wedding contracts and bills. Half-empty mugs of coffee, pens scattered. He was hunched over his laptop, shoulders tense but eyes alight with excitement. "Daniel," I began carefully, folding my hands in my lap, "have you noticed Rebecca never talks about her family?" "Not once. Not during dinner, not with the wedding planners." He glanced up, a flicker of impatience already in his eyes. "Mom, she's private about that stuff." "Not everyone has a picture-perfect family like we did picture-perfect?" The word hit me. Since when did my son believe our family had been perfect? His father and I had fought cancer together, scraped pennies to keep food on the table. Perfect was never the word. I steadied my voice. "It's unusual, isn't it? A wedding this big and not a single person from her side is coming?" Daniel set the laptop down and leaned back, arms crossed. "Her family's toxic, Mom." "She doesn't need them. She has me, she has you." "Yes, she does. Too much of you. And it scares me, Daniel, because I see the way she clings and I see the way you believe it's love." I tried again, softer. "And the bank account, darling. Why would she need to be added so soon? You've only known her 6 months." He straightened, jaw tightening. "Because we're getting married. Married couples share finances. It's normal." "Normal?" The word scraped against me like broken glass. Normal was your father and I saving every nickel together, waiting years before combining what little we had. Not this. Not signing over your hard-earned money because a pretty girl asked, sweetly. I reached across the table, my hand trembling slightly. "I'm not saying she isn't wonderful, Daniel. I'm just worried. Sometimes when she looks at you, I don't see love in her eyes. I see calculation." He froze, his face hardening. And in that silence, my heart sank. Since when did my son stop hearing my voice as love and start hearing it as suspicion? Since when did my words no longer soothe, but only wound? I leaned back, clutching my mug for warmth I couldn't find. The boy I raised, the boy who used to tell me everything, was slipping further away. And I realized, with a stab of grief, if I push too hard, I'll lose him completely. Daniel snapped his laptop shut with a sharp click. "Mom, enough. You keep circling back to this, her family, the bank account, every little thing. It's like you don't want me to be happy." My breath caught. Not want him happy? My whole life has been built around that boy's happiness. "That's not fair, Daniel," I said, voice trembling now. "I've given everything so you could have this wedding, this life. And I'm telling you, something doesn't add up." He pushed back his chair, standing now, towering over me with frustration written across his face. "Something doesn't add up because you don't like her. Admit it, Mom. No one will ever be good enough for your precious son." The word sliced. Precious son. Yes, you are precious, Daniel. That's why I see the danger you can't. And yet here you are, throwing my love back like it's poison. I rose too, anger and sorrow fighting in my chest. "Good enough? You think this is about standards? Daniel, she wants control of your money. She hides her past. She has no one standing by her. That's not love. It's a red flag waving in your face." His fists clenched. "Oh, you're wrong. She loves me. She's given me more in 6 months than anyone ever has." "More? What has she given you, Daniel? Stories, smiles, dreams spun out of air. And what have I given you? 40 years of sacrifice that suddenly mean nothing?" My voice cracked, desperate now. "And what if you're wrong? What if one day you wake up and she's taken everything, your savings, your trust? What then? Where will you be, Daniel?" His face hardened, eyes flashing with something colder than I'd ever seen in him. "At least I'll know I chose it. And if you loved me, Mom, you'd let me." The silence that followed was suffocating. Let him? Let my only son walk blindfolded into the fire? How does a mother stand by and watch that? I sat back down slowly, my hands trembling on the table. He turned away, jaw tight, refusing to meet my eyes. And in that moment, the distance between us felt like miles. I whispered inside my chest, when did my son stop being my boy and start being a man who doesn't trust me? When did love become control in his eyes? Tears stung my throat, but I swallowed them. Because even as he pulled away, even as he chose her over me, my love refused to let go. That night, after the fight with Daniel, I lay awake staring at the ceiling of my quiet little house. The silence pressed on me, thicker than the summer heat. I closed my eyes and memories spilled in. I remembered the flower shop. Our shop, Henry's and mine. We opened it in 1983 with only $2,400 in savings and a dream we couldn't afford. I used to stand behind the counter arranging bouquets while Henry delivered orders in our rusty Ford pickup. We counted every penny, but we were happy. Back then, Daniel was just a boy with scraped knees and a laugh that filled the shop. He used to curl up under the counter with his comic books, waiting for me to close. He never cared that we couldn't buy him the newest shoes or the fanciest toys. "Mom," he'd say, "as long as we have pizza night on Fridays, I'm good." Pizza night, $8.99 for a large pepperoni. That was joy to him. And now? Now I've sold that shop for $112,000, drained the savings account Henry and I built for retirement, borrowed against the house we swore we'd never risk. Also, my son could stand in a ballroom by the ocean and marry a woman who looks at him like an investment. I pressed my palms over my eyes, whispering into the dark. When did it change, Eleanor? When did scraped knees and Friday pizza turn into Vera Wang gowns and imported roses? I thought of Henry, how he used to grip my hand during chemo, whispering, "No matter what, Ellie, family first." He believed love was armor, enough to protect us from anything. But Henry is gone, and love doesn't feel like armor anymore. It feels like a knife, sharp, heavy, something I have to hold by the blade to shield my son. I told myself, maybe this is what it means to grow old, to watch the people you love walk into storms you can't stop, to give everything you have, knowing it still won't be enough. And then another voice, sharper, rose inside me. Number. Love isn't just giving, it's protecting, even if it means he hates you for it. For the first time in years, I felt something harden in me, a quiet, cold resolve. If Rebecca Hayes thinks she can strip my son of everything we've built, she's chosen the wrong family. She doesn't know who I was, who I still am. I survived Henry's illness, I survived widowhood, and I'll survive this. I will not lose Daniel to her lies. I stood at the door with a gift box in my hands, the faint scent of roses and lavender clinging to the air. The little wedding favors I had chosen had taken me hours, small tokens of love for their big day. I wanted everything to be perfect, even if I could no longer afford the endless extravagances Rebecca kept asking for. Daniel opened the door with a smile. "Mom, you didn't have to bring this all the way over." "But thanks," I smiled back, though it felt like a mask. "It's nothing, sweetheart. Just wanted to drop it off." He set the box on the counter. "Rebecca's in the back room. I'll go get her." I nodded as he walked away, my eyes drifting around the apartment. Everything looked so perfect. Wedding invitations, seating charts, flower samples scattered across the room. Yet something gnawed at me, an itch beneath my skin I couldn't quite scratch. Quietly, I stepped down the hall and paused by the bedroom door, left slightly ajar. The light was on. Inside, I heard Rebecca's voice, low but clear. "Don't call me on this number?" "The wedding's on track. Once we're married, I'll have access to his accounts. I just need more time to get him to sign everything over." I froze. My heart hammered in my chest, fingers tightening around the door frame. Each word cut sharper than a blade. Her voice dropped lower, but I could still make out every syllable. "The old woman has already given us over $40,000. She'll probably hand over more for the house after the wedding. Don't worry, I'll get it all. This will be easy." The blood drained from my face. I wanted to storm in, to confront her, but my body wouldn't move. I was rooted to the floor. Then her tone turned cold, deliberate. 3 to 6 months max, I'll clean him out. He's just a mark. He doesn't even know it. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Only the pounding of my heart. Only the crushing weight of her words. Daniel, my son, was nothing more than prey to her. And me? Just another wallet to drain. Then a man's voice came through the line, flat, businesslike. "Keep it moving. I'll be watching. Mr. Sloan wants his money. Stick to the plan, Sloan." The name twisted in my gut like a key turning in a lock, unlocking a terrible truth. This wasn't love. This was a job, a schedule. Before I could react, the door behind me swung open. My breath hitched as Daniel stepped out, still smiling. The air outside was damp, a misty evening settling over the city. I drove to the small cafe in downtown Charleston, where I used to meet Patricia Hayes, an old friend of mine who'd worked as a police detective before she retired. We'd lost touch over the years, but I had a feeling she might still have some useful connections. As I walked in, the bell over the door chimed. I spotted her right away, Patricia had always been the same, tough and no nonsense, her brown hair cut short, the sharpness in her eyes still there. She looked up from her coffee and gave me a small nod. Margaret, it's been too long. I slid into the seat across from her, trying to ignore the sinking feeling in my stomach. I didn't know if I was here as a friend or as a woman desperate to find the truth. Patricia, I began, my voice tight, I need your help. I know this sounds crazy, but something's not right with Rebecca, Daniel's fiancée. She's hiding something. Patricia's eyes narrowed, a professional flicker crossing her face. What do you mean, hiding something? She's been very secretive about her family, her past, and I just found out she's been involved in some shady business deals. Patricia leaned back, crossing her arms. Shady, huh? You've got my attention. What do you have? I paused for a moment. The words were hard to get out. She's been very careful, but I overheard her talking to someone named Marcus, someone from her past. They're planning something with Daniel's finances. She called him a mark. She's using him for his money, and I don't think this is the first time she's done it. Patricia set her coffee cup down slowly, eyes scanning mine with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. All right, let me see what I can dig up. But you're right to be cautious. You don't know who you're dealing with yet. A few days later, Patricia called. I was sitting in my living room, staring at the wedding details spread out before me. The weight of it all felt unbearable, as if I were suffocating under the expectation of a perfect day, when I knew it was all built on lies. The phone rang and I quickly picked it up. Margaret, you might want to sit down for this. I swallowed hard, my palms sweating. Tell me. I found her. Rebecca Hayes, or whatever name she's using. She's been involved in multiple scams, fraud, even ties to predatory lending. She was part of a financial fraud ring 5 years ago, working with a group that specialized in using vulnerable people to take out loans they could never repay. Once the victims were deep in debt, they'd threaten them until they signed over assets, including bank accounts and property. I felt my chest tighten. She's been doing this to people, Patricia continued. It's worse than you think. She's got an arrest record, nothing that stuck, but she's had run-ins with the law. Her real name is Sarah Collins. She was arrested in 2019 for falsifying financial documents and aiding in the manipulation of several elderly victims. But her charges were mysteriously dropped. They found a way to cover it up. She's been using fake identities since then. My head spun. Fake identities, cover-ups. She's been doing this for years, hiding behind a mask. Patricia added, I also found something interesting. There was a loan application that was flagged, where Sarah Collins was applying for a loan under a false name, claiming to be Daniel's fiancée. It was submitted under the alias Rebecca Hayes. Her signature's on it. I put my hand over my mouth, my heart pounding. Rebecca. She wasn't who she claimed to be. So, what now? I whispered. Patricia's voice softened. I'm going to get everything I can on her, but I think you already know the truth. Your son's about to marry someone who's only interested in one thing, his money. If you can, you need to stop it before it's too late. I hung up the phone, my mind racing. How did I miss this? I'd been so eager to see Daniel happy, to see him with someone he thought he loved, that I ignored the signs. Rebecca wasn't just a gold digger. She was a con artist, and she was about to destroy everything Daniel had. I sat down, the weight of the world on my shoulders. I knew what I had to do now, but I couldn't face her alone. I had to find a way to expose her before it was too late for Daniel. Daniel's apartment was unnervingly quiet. The soft hum of the air conditioner did nothing to cut through the tension. I stood at the door, clutching my handbag, knowing this moment would change everything. Rebecca was lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone, her posture casual, too casual for someone who was about to marry my son. Daniel was by the window, his back to me, his hands buried in his pockets, clearly distracted. I knew this would be hard, but I had to try. I had to make him understand. Daniel, I said, my voice slightly unsteady, can we talk? He didn't turn around at first. Rebecca's gaze flickered up, and I could see her smile barely hiding the disdain. She knew exactly what was coming. What's this about now, Mom? Daniel finally spoke, his voice already tense, not even bothering to face me. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I'm worried, Daniel. I've tried to hold my tongue, but I can't any longer. You're being taken advantage of. Rebecca chuckled softly from the couch, the sound almost mocking. Oh, please. This again? You've been nothing but trouble since we got engaged, Margaret. I'm not sure how much more of this I can take. I ignored her. This wasn't about Rebecca. This was about my son, the boy I raised, the one who used to believe me. Daniel, you don't know her. You don't know what she's been hiding. Her past is not what she's letting you believe. I paused, trying to gather the strength to say what was so hard to say. She's used people before. Manipulated them for money. You're not the first. His eyes flickered briefly with something, doubt, confusion, maybe even anger. But then he crossed his arms, standing a little taller. I've heard enough, Mom. You don't know Rebecca. She's not like that. Rebecca stood up slowly, closing the space between us, her expression now tight with annoyance. Daniel, you know I've tried. But your mother? She just can't accept that you've grown up, that you found someone who loves you. She's jealous. You're her little boy, and she's afraid to let go. I could feel my temper rising, the audacity of her twisting the situation like this. Jealous? You've got to be kidding me, I said, my voice rising. I'm not jealous. I'm trying to protect my son. You've been hiding your real intentions from him. Rebecca laughed, this time louder, more condescending. Oh, Margaret, please. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm doing what any woman would do. I love Daniel, and I'll make sure he's well taken care of. If you really loved him, you'd want him to be happy. I felt my heart lurch in my chest. Happy? Was this what happiness meant to him now? Daniel stepped between us, his eyes flashing with anger. Mom, you've been saying this for months, and I'm done. I'm done listening to you tear down Rebecca every chance you get. My breath caught. Tear her down? I wasn't tearing her down. I was trying to save him. Daniel, I started, my voice barely a whisper, but he cut me off. Don't, Mom. I love her. And if you loved me, you'd accept that. I'm marrying Rebecca, I'm making my own choices, and you're going to have to live with it. His words were harsh, louder than I'd ever heard from him before. I stared at him, my hands shaking, my throat closing up. How had we gotten here? When did my son start seeing me as the enemy? Rebecca's eyes gleamed with victory as she stepped forward, slipping her arm around Daniel's. He's right, Margaret. You've been holding him back his entire life. You've kept him locked away in this bubble. But now, he's free. Free? Was that what he thought? That being free meant marrying a woman who only saw him as a prize to be won? I felt a cold emptiness spread inside me. The words I wanted to say, the proof I had, everything seemed to vanish. All I could see was my son, standing there, turning his back on me. I'm your mother, Daniel, I whispered, fighting to keep my voice steady. I only want what's best for you. Daniel didn't respond. He didn't even look back at me. He just stood there, letting Rebecca hold on to him like she owned him. I'm not the villain here, Mom, he said coldly. You're the one who's ruining everything. And just like that, my son walked away from me, leaving me standing alone in the place I'd built with nothing but empty memories and a heart full of regret. After the confrontation, I left Daniel's apartment, my mind in chaos. The door slammed behind me with a resounding thud that seemed to echo in the silence of the hallway. I walked out to my car, each step feeling heavier than the last. The night air was cold and crisp, but it did nothing to numb the ache in my chest. How had I failed him so badly? My son, the boy I raised, the boy I loved with all my heart, had just walked away. The words he'd said, his anger, his rejection, stung more than I cared to admit. I sat in the driver's seat, hands gripping the wheel. The city lights blurred as I stared through the windshield, not really seeing anything. He's not a child anymore. That's what he'd said to me. I'm not a child, Mom. I looked down at my hands, trembling slightly. Had I failed as a mother? Had I been too overbearing, too controlling? Was I just trying to hold on to him because I couldn't stand the thought of losing him? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized. No, this isn't just about control. This is about him being in danger, about Rebecca manipulating him, using him for her own gain. Why didn't he see it? I closed my eyes and let out a long, shaky breath. What was I supposed to do now? I pulled my phone out, the screen lighting up with a message from Victor Sloan. We need to talk. The neon lights outside flickered like an old film reel, the diner casting its glow into the night air. The usual hum of traffic had softened, leaving the streets quiet, almost too quiet. I parked and sat in the car for a moment, my hands tight on the wheel. I hadn't come here for closure. I hadn't come for comfort. I came because I had no other choice. Victor Sloan, a name that tasted bitter in my mouth. Once a businessman, now a man haunted by his own regrets, his own failures. And yet, he might be the only one who could help me expose the woman who had been pulling my son into her web. I stepped out of the car, the cold night air cutting through my thin jacket. My breath came out in puffs as I walked toward the diner, my heels clicking against the pavement like a countdown to something inevitable. The bell above the door jingled as I walked in. The place was nearly empty, save for a few tired-looking men at the counter, their faces hard with the weight of their own secrets. But I didn't care about them. Victor sat in the far corner booth, staring down at his coffee, a man worn by time. I could already feel the heaviness in the air, the weight of his past, of the money he'd lost, of the woman who'd betrayed him. He didn't look up as I approached. I stood there for a moment watching him, before sliding into the seat opposite him. His eyes finally lifted and I saw it. The cold recognition, the knowing look. "You're here about her, aren't you?" Victor's voice was rough, like gravel in a storm. I nodded. "I need your help. I know you've had dealings with Rebecca. She's using my son, Victor. And I can't get through to him." He leaned back in his seat, his eyes narrowing as he studied me. The flickering diner lights cast shadows across his face. His fingers drummed lightly against the table, the only sound in the room. "You think she's going to let you win this time? You think she'll leave your son alone when she's got what she wants?" The question hit me hard. Win? Was this even about winning anymore? Or had it become about survival? "She's playing him," I whispered, my voice tight with emotion. "She's been playing everyone for years, and I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending she's not going to destroy him." Victor's eyes softened just for a moment. "I know the feeling." He was trying to decide whether he'd show me mercy. Then he leaned forward, his voice lowering. "She did the same thing to me. Got close, acted sweet, made me think she was all kinds of broken. I gave her $15,000. She told me her father was sick, that she needed the money for hospital bills." My breath caught. 15,000. It wasn't just a number, it was the same amount. The same lies. Victor's fingers clenched. Once she got the money, she vanished, left me with nothing. And I've been chasing her ever since, trying to get it back, trying to get even, but every time I think I've got a lead, she's gone again. I sat back, letting his words sink in. I wasn't alone. This woman had done this before. She had made a career out of this destruction. Victor looked at me then, his eyes hard with a mixture of resentment and resolve. "But you're right. She's a parasite, and I'm tired of being her prey." I leaned forward, my voice steady, though my hands were shaking. "I need your help. I can't take her down alone. But together, maybe we can expose her for who she really is." He studied me for a moment, his expression unreadable, and then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. "All right, I'll help. But it won't be easy. You'll need more than just what you've got now. She's good at hiding. Too good. But I know how she works. I know how to find her. For good." His words hung in the air, and for the first time in weeks I felt a spark of hope flicker. Victor's gaze never left mine as he slid a file across the table. It was thick, bulging with papers. "This is the beginning. I've got everything you need to put the pieces together, and when the time comes, we'll bring it all down." I opened the file slowly, my heart hammering in my chest. Inside there were details, documents, addresses, even pictures. And I knew in that instant that we were no longer fighting just for Daniel's happiness. We were fighting for his future, for his life. Victor stood up and I followed suit. "You sure you're ready for this?" he asked, his voice low. I didn't hesitate. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The wedding was a spectacle. Every detail carefully crafted, everything designed to make Rebecca feel like the queen of this day, of Daniel's life. The luxury of it all was suffocating, yet I found myself on the outside, watching it all unfold as if I didn't belong. I walked into the venue and immediately felt the cold distance. The guests were mingling, laughing, congratulating the newlyweds, but no one turned to acknowledge me. Rebecca glided past, her wedding gown shimmering, her smile a perfect mask of sweetness. But in her eyes, I saw what I feared. Ownership. And beside her, Daniel looked happy. Too happy. They didn't see me. I wasn't a part of this. Not anymore. When I approached the seating area, a staff member politely told me, "Your seat is at the back, ma'am." My feet froze in place for a moment before I walked toward the back row. It felt like my feet were dragging through cement. I was invisible, just a shadow in a room full of light. As I made my way to the back, I couldn't help but feel the weight of being excluded. I was supposed to be at the front, sitting beside Daniel, but instead, I was a spectator in my own son's life. I sat down quietly, the voices of the guests blending into a blur of background noise. I could see Daniel from here, standing next to Rebecca, eyes locked on her with a kind of adoration that made my heart ache. He didn't look at me. He didn't even seem to remember who had been there for him all those years. I watched him. I was waiting. Waiting for the moment when everything would collapse, when Rebecca's true nature would become clear. I wasn't going to make a scene today. I wasn't going to ruin this day for him, no matter how much it hurt. The vows were exchanged, their words perfect, rehearsed, almost too perfect. I didn't need to hear them to know what was happening. Rebecca had won. Daniel had chosen her. But as the ceremony continued, I sat still, my hands clenched in my lap. Patience. I had to wait for the right moment, and I would wait as long as I needed to. Rebecca stood at the center of the room, holding court as if she'd always been the queen of it all. Her voice rose above the chatter, smooth and sweet, and for a moment everything stopped as the guests turned toward her. "First of all, I just want to say how incredibly grateful I am for all of you who came today," she began, her tone dripping with affection. "But I especially want to thank my dear husband Daniel. He's made every dream I've had come true." The guests clapped politely, and Daniel stood beside her, basking in her praise. His smile was wide, sincere, and I could almost see the pride in his eyes as he looked at her. My chest tightened, but then Rebecca's gaze shifted, deliberately, slowly, until her eyes landed on me. "You know," she continued, raising her glass, "there's something so beautiful about a mother's love. It's unconditional, unwavering. Even when it's a bit much, don't you think?" The guests laughed lightly, as if it was an innocent remark, but I could see it. Her eyes dancing with amusement, the way she threw that word much into the sentence, just enough to make it sting. And then, with a sweetness that only made her words more venomous, she added, "But of course we all know that some mothers just want to be a part of everything. And we appreciate it, don't we? The constant attention. It's like being wrapped in a blanket of love. So cozy," her words hung in the air, the silence between us stretching uncomfortably long. The guests shifted uncomfortably, but nobody said anything. The subtle implication was clear. I was the one out of place here. I was the one who didn't fit in. "I think we can all agree," she went on, her tone light but cutting, "that sometimes it's best to let go and let the younger generation take over, right? Give them space to breathe, to build their own lives without distractions." The crowd chuckled, but it wasn't just a laugh. It was a dismissal. Rebecca was expertly drawing lines in the sand, and with every word, I felt more and more isolated, like a ghost in the room. The wedding had been a display of elegance, but now the room felt suddenly heavier. The laughter around me faded, and for a brief moment I could hear my own heartbeat. I stood up. Before anyone could react, my voice broke through the quiet. "Before I leave, I think you should meet someone." The door opened, and through it stepped Victor Sloan. The room froze. Rebecca's face drained of color, her eyes widening in pure panic. She staggered, her hand knocking the glass of wine from the table, and it fell to the floor, shattering. Victor didn't waste time. "I think you remember me, Rebecca," he said, his voice low but clear, cutting through the silence like a knife. "We had a business arrangement, didn't we?" The room was still, the tension hanging thick. Victor didn't wait for Rebecca to respond. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folder, flipping it open slowly, deliberately. "I thought you might like to see something," he continued, his tone measured but with a quiet authority. He slid the papers onto the table, a contract. Rebecca's signature was clearly visible. "The loan agreement you signed," Victor said. "The one you never intended to repay. The one you used to manipulate Daniel." The guests leaned forward, their eyes darting from Victor to Rebecca, whose face was now a mix of disbelief and fury. "No, that's not—" Rebecca began, but Victor wasn't done. He pulled out his phone, tapping it a few times before playing a voice recording. The voice was unmistakable. It was Rebecca's, cold and calculating. "I'll get him to marry me, then I'll have access to everything. Once we're married, he'll pay off the debt." He's a mark, but he doesn't even know it yet. The sound of the recording hitting the air was like a slap to the face. Rebecca's breath caught in her throat. Her mouth opened and closed, trying to form words that wouldn't come. Rebecca's eyes darted around the room, trying to gather herself, but the damage had already been done. That's not what it sounds like, she stammered, her voice cracking. Victor stepped forward, his voice a low growl. You didn't think it through, did you? You thought you could play him forever. You thought you could play me too. But now, everyone gets to see who you really are. Rebecca turned toward Daniel, her mouth opening in panic. Daniel, you know me. I didn't mean for this to get out of hand. It's all just a misunderstanding. You know I love you. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Daniel remained frozen, his face pale as he processed the words, the betrayal sinking in. He turned to me, his eyes wide with disbelief. Is this true? Daniel finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. I stepped forward, calm and composed, my eyes never leaving Rebecca. It's all true, Daniel. I tried to warn you. She was never who she said she was. Rebecca took a step back, her hands trembling, her composure cracking. This is ridiculous, she said, shaking her head. You're just jealous, Eleanor. You're trying to ruin everything. My voice was firm. No, Rebecca. You did that all by yourself, the whispers started. Guests exchanged looks, some nodding, others shaking their heads. The weight of the truth was too much to ignore. Daniel stood there, his heart torn, his mind reeling. I can't believe this, he muttered. Rebecca, why didn't you tell me? Rebecca was backing away now, her eyes wild. I didn't want to hurt you. I wanted to protect us, to make sure everything was perfect. You have to understand, Daniel, I was just trying to help. The revelation was clear. Rebecca's mask had fallen. It's been 3 days since everything collapsed at the wedding. If you'd asked me that day if I could have imagined things turning out like this, I would have said no. But now, looking back, there's no feeling of triumph or victory. All I feel is exhaustion. Exhaustion from what I witnessed, exhaustion from what I had to endure. That day, when Daniel took off his wedding ring and placed it on the table, he didn't need to say a word. That ring, the symbol of a future he had built, was suddenly meaningless. And Rebecca, standing there, losing her confidence, was being dragged away. The creditors arrived, and that was it. She had lost everything. Now, as I sit in the quiet of my home, I've had time to reflect. I've lived enough to understand that love is not a sacrifice to be blindly given, but a force that must be respected and protected. I've learned that real love, the kind that lasts, is based on trust and mutual understanding, not manipulation and control. I never thought I'd get here. 3 months ago, I thought I was losing everything. My son, my future, even my own sense of self. I was watching him slip away, caught up in a dream spun by a woman who didn't love him, didn't know how to. She was just using him, using all of us. But now, looking back, I see something clearer than I ever did before. I didn't lose him. I freed him. I freed him from the lies, from the darkness that Rebecca had woven around him. And most importantly, I freed myself. The days since the wedding have been strange. The silence has been deafening. At times, the pain of seeing Daniel so lost still stabs at me. He's still angry. He still wants to believe in her. But I've let go. I've come to understand what real strength is. Strength is not in holding on to what hurts you, but in knowing when to let go. I wasn't just protecting Daniel when I exposed Rebecca. I was protecting myself. No more shrinking into the background. No more pretending to be weak for the sake of others. I was strong all along, and I finally saw it. I think about the years I spent in silence, the way I poured myself into everyone else. Henry, Daniel, my shop, my family, until there was nothing left of me. But now, I'm learning to fill myself up again. There's a strange peace in the quiet. I sit on my porch some evenings, watching the sun dip behind the trees, and I feel no rush. I don't need anything but this moment. And as for Daniel, he's still my son. I've let him go, but not completely. He'll need time, maybe even more pain, to truly see the truth. But I can't force him to. He'll come around when he's ready. I did the best I could, and now he has to find his own way. I've been told that women my age have nothing left to fight for, that we've passed our time, but I see things differently now. I'm not done. I've never been more alive. At 65, I've never been more myself. The women who came before me, my mother, my grandmother, they lived lives bound by expectations, but I'll be damned if I let anyone decide how I spend my years now. I have too much left to give. Not to anyone else, but to myself. I spend my days differently now. I'm not rushing, not trying to please. I walk when I want to walk, I speak when I want to speak, and I work for the things that matter to me, not for anyone else's approval. The flower shop is gone, but it isn't the end. It was just a chapter. The true story is mine to write now. I've found peace in the quiet moments. I read books I've never had the time for. I sit in my garden and breathe in the life I've been ignoring. I've learned that it's okay to be alone with my thoughts. I've also learned that this is what freedom feels like, when you have nothing left to prove to anyone but yourself. To all the women like me, don't let anyone tell you it's too late. Don't wait for permission to live your life. Live it now. Take back your strength, your voice, your dreams. There's no expiration date on independence. You're never too old to start over. I look at Daniel, I see his confusion, his anger, his pain, but I also see something else. He will rise. He will find his strength just like I did. And when he does, he will be the man he was always meant to be. As for me, I've finally become the woman I was meant to be, and there's no going back.